I'm pleased to be joining you again, not in person, but online. I'd hoped to be there myself in Ukraine, but the way things happened, it didn't work, and I'm doing it virtually. I'd like to say hello to all my friends I met last year at the camp. I've seen some of you today on the camera. I've seen many good faces. I'd like to say hello to all the people who are watching either in the forest or at home. And of course, I'd like to say hello to all the chickens. Okay. I've been introduced as, you know who I am, and you know what my theme is the translation industry restructuring itself. Sometimes I've been told off for calling it an industry. People say, no, it's a profession. I think the words are not important. It is an industry because we work hard. It's a profession because we do it properly. So is the industry restructuring itself? Now, I have to say, I prepared this presentation back in January. And in January of this year, the world was a very different place to what it is now. So I'm not going to talk about how things are changing because of COVID-19. I'm going to talk about how things were changing before all this happened and how things will probably change. We assume they will change after it's happened. So you could say that 2020 has been postponed, although in reality it hasn't, because the fact that this conference is taking place today and this week means that you have found a way around the problems that we have with the pandemic. So it hasn't been postponed, it's just been delayed and it changed. Of course, lots of changes are taking place at the moment, but I'm more interested in the changes that have taken place and the changes that will take place in the future. The big question, of course, and one that I can't answer and nobody can answer is, will COVID make any difference to the rate at which it changes? Will it speed it up or will it slow it down? Well, we'll only know that in a year's time when we hope it's all over. Now, before I go on to talk about how the translation industry is changing or will change, let's have a look at a few other examples where market forces do apply. Examples that really have nothing much directly to do with translation, but certainly things we can learn from. My first example, hotel room in Dnipro tonight. Well, tonight or last night. When I thought I was coming, a few months ago, I booked a hotel myself in the city for 2 or 3 nights before the conference, so I could do some sightseeing. And there's quite a choice of rooms. I could have this one, Hostel Portal for 12 euros. Not sure about that. That's 12 euros for 2 people, by the way, not just for 1 person. I could have River Park Apartment, looks very nice, 43 euros, which is by European standards, by Western European standards, that's really quite a cheap price. And that includes a double room with balcony. Or I could have the boutique hotel for 98 euros, which is the price I would expect to pay for a reasonable hotel room in most other countries. A huge choice in prices, and there were 160, 186 different rooms available. Look at those prices again. Big difference. So why can one charge 98 and the other one charge 12? Well, it's what you get. It's what you pay for, and people choose by price, they judge by quality in all walks of life. So, for example, if I paid 12 euros and I got this, I would be extremely happy. But if I paid 98 euros and got that, I would be less happy. As I say, we choose by price, we judge by quality. There's a saying, you get what you pay for, and that's the same in our business as it is in any other business. My second example is the bookshop. Now, anybody over 20 years old will know what I mean. Anybody younger than that will probably say, what's a bookshop? Well, bookshops throughout the world have traditionally been like this. I call it a high street bookshop because you get them in the main parts of every town, city and some villages throughout most of the world. In this case, it's a bookshop that also sells other things because the profit margin on books is very small. So you have to sell things like cards, stationery, magazines, where the profit margin is a lot higher. But this is a bookshop. It calls itself a bookshop. and that's what it promotes. It only sells other things because it needs to. And bookshops were like this until, I suppose, about 20 years ago. And then this happened. Suddenly, you could buy any book you wanted to online, have it delivered to your house, and it was cheaper. Now, Amazon nowadays has expanded so much that they sell virtually everything. I assume they still sell books, I don't know. But you can buy anything there, and they got fast delivery and good prices and an easy way of buying things. You don't have to go park your car outside the bookshop, go in, look around, it's there. And that's what we're used to now. At the other end of the scale, you have the antiquarian bookshop. Some people call it a junk bookshop. The antiquarian bookshop is usually something like this, a small room filled from floor to ceiling, stacked up with books, run usually by one or possibly two very enthusiastic people who love books, who are never happier than they are when they're surrounded by books. And you can see, finding what you want there is going to be very difficult. You might spend hours looking for something, or you might just go and say, oh, I'll take the first book, take a chance, see what it's like. But antiquarian bookshops, certainly in cities that have universities or other academic places, are still very popular, and people like them, even though they're very cold in the winter, very hot in the summer, and very dusty. People go there because it is an experience. So, which of those three things is in the biggest danger of survival? Well, certainly it's not the online shop, because they are getting bigger and better every time. They're not in danger. And actually, I think the antiquarian bookshop isn't in danger, because there will always be a few people to go in and support that shop. It doesn't need thousands of customers per day. It works on a shoestring budget. It works very cheaply, and it will survive. I fear the one that's going to disappear is going to be the bookshop, Gulliver's Bookshop, and thousands of Gulliver's bookshops all around the world, because they cannot compete with the big boys, and they certainly cannot compete with the small antiquarian bookshop selling out-of-print, rare, second-hand books. I may be wrong, I hope I'm wrong, but I fear that's the way it is. My second example, a travel agent. And again, travel agents were things we knew and respected and trusted for many, many years. It was a shop. It was full of brochures. It had nice people with big smiles who tried to seduce you to travel to faraway places. They had all the information. You would go and talk to them. Sometimes they'd been to the place themselves. They could tell you about it. Other times they pretended they'd been. But you had to feel good. You went there and you knew you were getting what you wanted. And that was what a travel agent did. And the travel agent made its money by selling you holidays. But nowadays, we book things online. When I was planning to come to Ukraine, I booked my flights, my hotels myself. I did not go down to the local travel agent and say, I'd like to stay in the middle of a forest, please, in Ukraine. Can you find something for me? No, I did it all myself. And most of us, I think, book holidays that way now. And at the other end, we've got the specialist. In this case, it's for disabled holidays, but it could be anything. It could be people with a specialist interest, pony trekking in Tibet or whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. It means it's a holiday that only appeals to a certain number of people. And people booking those holidays want to be absolutely certain that the person who is selling it to them has done his or her homework and knows what they're doing, because a lot depends on it. Now, if you're disabled, either physically or mentally, you have certain requirements that the average tourist does not need. And if you don't get those, your holiday is ruined. You can book it yourself online and trust the information you get is correct, or you can go to the specialist who will have checked it out beforehand, probably sold the same holiday to other people, and knows that it's genuinely good for you. And my last example is the clothes shop. I don't use clothes shops very much, I'm a translator, but a clothes shop, traditionally a local store nearby, a reasonable price, reasonable range, nothing special, but mostly what you want. You can go and get a suit there or a dress there, or if you're a translator, a set of pyjamas, and you would know that it was a reasonable price, but not as much choice as you might want. And that's always where clothes were sold. And then, I don't know in Ukraine if Primark has arrived. If it hasn't, it will do in the next couple of years. This is just one of many huge chains, international chains of clothes shops who have massive purchasing power. They can buy in the millions where the shop in the middle can only buy in the hundreds, and they sell them cheap. And they're very popular. And people go to Primark now who used to go to the clothes shop because they have much more choice. They don't get the same service, but they get a right price. And then again, at the other extreme, you have, now this word bespoke, I shall come back to that, remember that word, bespoke hand-tailored suits made to measure for celebrities, royalty, interpreters, those sort of people. And this picture of Savile Row, it's one street in central London that is full of shops selling very top price clothes made to measure, hand-tailored, bespoke. And the prices are different. Get a Primark and you can buy a suit for €100, possibly. Don't know, never done it. But they're cheap and they're okay. You go to that shop in the middle and you're going to pay 4 times as much for a suit because their costs are higher, they employ more staff, their purchasing power is less, and they rely on people going in, having a look around, being talked to, whereas in Primark it's difficult to find anyone to talk to except yourself, and you pay for that price. If you've got money to spend, and there are people with money to spend, you can go to Savile Row and you'll pay at least €5,000 for that same suit, but it won't be the suit you would have bought at Primark. It will be handmade, especially for you. Why that difference in price? How can a suit cost anything from €100 to €5,000? Well, we know the reason. That suit, the cheap one, almost certainly was made in the Far East in dangerous, dirty working conditions, not safe, bad working conditions, long hours, poor pay. But we use them. I wonder if I could see you raise your hands, I wonder how many people have bought a t-shirt for €3 knowing the person who made it was paid 3 cents, and that person could well have been an 8-year-old child in Cambodia or somewhere. We know about it, but we do it. The middle one, well, that's made in better working conditions. Fewer people working there, more space, is properly lit, it's safer, no danger of industrial accidents there. A lot of it is automated, but it's still controlled by people who are professional tailors. That's why you're paying the extra. And the ultimate extreme, the man who makes your made-to-measure suit, he probably only makes 2 of those each month, which is why he needs to charge that much to make a living. He's gone. There he is. And it will be made exactly for you. Your body measurements will be taken, he will lay it out, and every stitch will be controlled along the way. He'll probably call you in 3 or 4 times for a fitting and make sure it's absolutely right. And if it's not, he'll change it. And that's the price you have to pay for that sort of service. Once again, which of those 3 is in danger of disappearing? Not the big internationals. They've got the market covered. Not the bespoke specialists. There are enough people in the world, not many, but you don't need many, enough people in the world to support those. It is, I'm afraid, the middle one that's likely to disappear because they can't afford the cost, they can't compete on price, they can't compete on quality. But I'm talking about clothes shops and bookshops and travel agents, and that's not what I'm here to do. What does that have to do with our job as translators, interpreters, editors, anybody working in the language and linguistic world? All the changes that have happened to other industries, will they affect us? I'm not a fortune teller. I don't know. I can just go through the possibilities. And I call them the 3B principle. My 3 Bs, I shall introduce them one by one. First one you'll be very familiar with is the word bulk. My second one, boutique. And my third one, coming back to that word I mentioned earlier on, is bespoke. Bulk, boutique, and bespoke. What do they mean? Well, bulk, you all know, it means big, large, lots of it. It can apply to virtually anything. Bulk buying, doing things in large numbers, right? Boutique used to be a French word. It's been borrowed or stolen by the rest of the world, and it now means, not a shop, but it means serving a sophisticated or specialized clientele. Or you could say serving a clientele that likes to think it is sophisticated or specialized. Boutique is the middle part, the middle range. So it's the travel agent, the bookshop, the clothes shop, in the middle of those three. And bespoke, normally used for clothes, but can be used in many other ways. It means goods or services made to order. So not something that you can go and pick off the shelf, something that you order and it is made especially for you. Like having a building designed by an architect, you can say what you want and what you don't want, and you have the choice. Bulk translations. What do we mean by bulk translations? Well, we all know what bulk translations are because we've all seen them. That's a bulk translation. Okay, it's in Latin. It doesn't matter what language it's in because no one's going to read it. Bulk translations are the things that have to be there because either regulations require it, the washing machine instructions, or it has to be there for legal reasons. And you know what it's like, you scroll down through 35 pages of 6-point type just so you can then click that box at the bottom saying, I accept the terms and conditions. You don't read it. The person who wrote it knows you don't read it. The person or the machine who translated it doesn't care if you read it or not. It has to be there. It serves a purpose. There are exceptions, of course. In the academic world, in the medical world, you have very thick documents, again, with thousands of words, which are translated properly because they are going to be read. I don't call that a bulk translation. I call that just a lot of translation. But by bulk, I mean stuff that is just there because it needs to be there, and the quality of translation doesn't matter because it's very unlikely to be, very unlikely, should I say, to be read. Just skim through. A key example, sorry, that was a pun on the word key. A key example of bulk translation. Now, this is something that I'll go slowly because it takes quite a bit of brain power to get your ideas around this. Remove product from packaging. Well, the instructions were inside the packaging, so to have got the instructions, you obviously unpacked and taken the thing out. So that's totally redundant. Insert batteries into the battery compartment. I can't imagine anywhere else where you would insert batteries except into the battery compartment. And so you're just about to do that, and then you say, batteries not included. Switch on. Now, that's not enough technical information for most people, so it goes a bit further and explains using the on-off switch, just in case you didn't realise. And finally, your device is now ready to use. One assumes if you've managed to get it out of the packaging, you've managed to switch it on, having put the batteries in, that you know it's ready to use. That is just useless information, but it's useless information in 26 languages. So some translators have made a bit of money on translating it, but really it's totally, totally unnecessary in the first place. You could say it's designed in paradise, it's produced in China, it's translated by Google. Boutique translations, something that appeals to me because I work as a boutique translator, if you like. I own a travel, translation company here in the Netherlands, and we specialise in boutique translations. Doesn't mean we translate about shops, but we do things in a creative and a specialist way. Boutique translations can usually include, although not only, marketing, of course, because marketing needs a certain style of language to get the message across. Retail, again, if you've got a good product, you need to sell it, and that's where your descriptions of labels, displays in the shop need to be translated correctly if you're operating in various countries. Tourism, most definitely. Tourism is the best use I can think of for boutique translations, because everything has to be wonderful, everything has to be fabulous, everything has to be just make you happy. Publicity, of course, any sort of publicity cannot be done as a bulk translation. It has to be done by people who know what they're talking about, who know the product, who can describe it in the best ways. Literature, to a certain extent, I'm not sure if literature is really boutique translation, but I put it in anyway. And entertainment, most certainly. Whether you're a symphony orchestra or a pop star, you need to promote yourself. You need people to come and buy tickets for your gig, your concert, and that is where boutique translation, in my mind, comes in. It's creative translation. Bespoke translation. This is the other end of the market from bulk. Now, it may include uncommon language pairs. Probably does. A few days ago, I had an email from somebody who said, I can translate from Welsh into Georgian. Or was it Georgian into Welsh? I can't remember. It doesn't really matter. I thought, okay, sir, but at the moment I don't actually have any work for you, but I'll keep a note of your name, and when I get that Georgian into Welsh or other way around translation, I know exactly where to find you. If it's English into Spanish or Spanish into English, there are 10 million people, all of whom could do a good job. They're not bespoke. Political and governmental is interesting because in some forms of translation, certainly medical, technical, legal, then the translation has to be 100% accurate, pure, and virtually no difference between the two languages. That's the important thing. Political and governmental, now, sometimes it's not what they say, it's what they don't say, and it's what they want you to think, and that can be different in different countries. So as a political translator, you've got to know what that politician wants you to think and apply it to a different country and a different language, which is a skill I don't have. It's something I don't particularly want to do, but it's not just translating the words, it's translating the concept, the mindset and the thoughts behind it, because politicians and governmental people are not always known for their complete honesty. Specialist knowledge. To be a good translator of specialist knowledge, you need to have that knowledge yourself. One example I can think of is medical translation. The only medical translators I know were actually people with a medical background who then became translators and not translators who studied medicine. I'm sure that applies to many other specialisms. Again, you have to know your subject 100% or more than 100%. Religious and ethic is a tricky one again, because different things appeal to different people. You need to know the message behind it, and religious translation is a very, very tricky thing to do, because you get the message wrong and you got the words wrong. And of course, transcreation. Transcreation, again, of those 5 examples, that's the only one I would ever consider doing. I do quite a lot of transcreation. A lot has been talked about transcreation at this conference, at last year's conference, and at many conferences. It's a bit of a buzzword at the moment. People are getting into transcreation, although there's nothing new about it. Chris Durbin, who you may know, calls bespoke translation premium translations, and she in fact was quoting Kevin Hendel. Chris gave a talk recently about premium translations, and by that she means not so much how the translation industry is changing, but how you as an individual translator can move up the ladder, how you can get into that niche market of translations where you can earn more, get better clients and specialize and succeed. So we have the same concept, the same belief, just different messages behind it. In my case, it's how the industry is changing. In Chris's case, it's how you as an individual can change. And she says things like, markets where the cost of failure is dramatically higher than the cost of performance. The cost of failure is something we don't often think about in translation. We think about how much it costs, but not how much it's going to cost if it fails. And she goes on to say, the bulk market translators' heads are buried in dictionaries. Premium market translators are buried inside their clients' heads. That's wonderful, Chris. I wish I'd written that. It's just perfect. Buried inside your clients' heads. If I can just give a little plug, Chris and I will be co-hosting a Zoom room session at 6 o'clock local time this evening, and you're welcome to join us and discuss this and other things. So, to summarise, bulk, large volume, minimal quality, but acceptable quality, no rubbish, right? It's not the sort of thing that has definitely been translated by an outdated version of Google Translate. No, the quality is good enough for what it has to do. Again, the washing machine instructions, you only read them when the washing machine breaks down, and then it's too late. But it has to be okay, it has to be accurate, but it hasn't got to be beautiful. Right? Quick output, low rates, limited human involvement, and that's going to be even more limited in the years to come. Boutique, that's my section if you like. Low volume, high quality, I like to think. Acceptable output, reasonable rates, and a combination of cap tools and people, conventional methods. So it still requires the human being, but it can also use technology where appropriate. So not top notch, but certainly not large volume. And then bespoke, restricted volume. The absolute top in quality. You cannot beat it anywhere else. It's tailor-made, whether it's a suit or a translation. It's made to fit your requirements. It doesn't matter what it costs. There will always be people who can pay that money, and it can be virtually done without technology. I mean, the bespoke translator here has a nice feather quill. The bespoke tailor has a nice pair of scissors and a few needles, and that's about as far as technology goes. Now, if you're getting very depressed at this stage and thinking, you know, where am I in all this? How do I fit in as a translator? Is it worth it? Should I go and hit the bar right now? No, don't worry. Only 1% of the internet has been translated. 1%. 99% of it is still in one language, so there's plenty of work for you. Just go and find it, just like that. And Google Translate translates more words in 1 minute than all the other translators in 1 day. You want the figures? I'll give you some figures, but they're out of date. They're from 2017, so they're 3 years old. 300 billion words then by Google and 200 billion words by us. But 200 billion is a lot of words. If you can get a few thousands of those for yourself, you're okay. So don't panic. There's plenty of work there. Don't worry about the huge, great companies taking over, pushing you out. They won't push you out, they'll push you sideways. I'll try and explain what I mean about that. When all this is over, and the changes that were taking place up until January, February of this year will continue to change in January, February of next year, earlier we hope. When that happens, we're going to see how it affects us. Okay, here's our profession in visual form. And here's you, screaming for help. Where do we go from here? I've lost the way. Help me, somebody, tell me what I should be doing. Well, the only person that can tell you what you should be doing is you yourself, of course, but there are some guidance. This will no longer happen. Nice, neat and tidy. You've got the bulk, you've got the boutique, and you've got the bespoke. And they're all in their nice separate sections. Bit of distance between them all. They don't interfere. All getting on and doing their job at their level of quality, their level of price, and that's safe. We know it. We feel good with that. But that's changing. And it's going to do that. I'll just go back so you can see that becomes that. You can see still the same three sections, the bulk, the boutique and the bespoke, still doing their own job, but of course it's created an empty space on the left-hand side. What happens if you create an empty space? It gets filled. And of course, this is now being filled by cloud translation, by machine translation, or more importantly, by neural machine translation. I'm sure a lot of you know far more about that than I know about it. So I'm not going to tell you about neural translation because I don't know that much about it. It hasn't really affected me, but I know it is affecting our industry. And there's a description, not my description, but one which I think says what it means. And it's here to stay. We've learned to live with machine translation. We're now going to have to learn to live with artificial intelligence, NMT, and all those other things. But it's not going to be as simple as that. That's the situation at the moment. We've now got 4 categories, 4 separate sections, all separate, all doing their own thing. It's going to change. That's what's going to change. NMT is going to get bigger. And you see what it's doing? It's pushing the bulk into the boutique. It's moving it across. The gentleman on the right is unaware of all this. He's still writing his book. He's still cutting his suit out. He won't be affected, but the rest of us will in some way or another. It could even be that. So, Bespoke translator, he'll carry on. He doesn't worry about it. He doesn't even know about it. The boutique translator, people like me and some of you, we will be under competition. The bulk translator will need to reorganize, is reorganizing as I speak, which is a bit of a threat for the boutique people who used to be in the middle. We're now being pushed sideways. You can see what's happening. You know, it's pushing everything to one side, although the bespoke man is not being pushed anywhere because he's at the top, and if you're at the top, you can't be pushed any higher. How will it affect the rates? What we charge, what people are prepared to pay? This is only a prediction on my point. I would suggest this. I'll go back. That was there. You notice that the boutique stays about the same. But the bespoke translator can charge even more. He's become even more of a specialist. The bulk translator will have to charge less. And the NMT, the cloud translator, charge even less than that. Bulk translation companies, a lot of them are rebranding themselves. I know many who say we are creative translators. I'm not worried about that. I don't see it as a threat to me as a creative translator. I do question how a company or an individual who's been translating technical work for 20 years can suddenly class themselves as a creative translator, because I, as a creative translator, could never suddenly say, I've become a technical translator. I don't have those skills. I'm not criticizing it, I'm just questioning, is that really this? Is that possible? Can you suddenly decide you want to be creative and press the creative button and suddenly your world has changed? I know a few boutique translation companies are concentrating more on marketing and transcreation. In my case, I've always done that, but companies are, the middle section, the boutique translators are saying, well, I've got to specialise, I can't do too many things. There's no point specialising in the sort of things that are being taken over by bulk companies pushing me out of the way, so I should go into marketing, transcreation, that sort of thing. And bespoke translators are specialising even more, and if you've got the money, you can go to them. If you haven't, they're not interested in you. And NMT translations will lower their fees, lower their rates, and in some cases offer things completely for free. Well, what is free? If you use Google Translate, you don't actually pay money to do it, but the minute you use it, all your text becomes their property, and they can do whatever they like with it. And of course, no such thing as a free lunch. They sell you as a product, but that's another question. We know about that. NMT is going to be even more so. Free translations at a press of a button. Is this the world of the future? each section, each category now, the book people, the clothes shops, the travel industry, and translation, all neatly arranged into different levels. The question that we don't know is, that middle section, is that the one that's going to disappear? Will we have a world that is just that? I hope not. I don't think so, but we don't know. But it's a good idea to be prepared, and you can prepare yourself in different ways. You can prepare yourself by looking around and seeing what the rest of the industry is doing. You can look at what you do yourself and say, just because I've been doing it like this for 5 years, 10 years, 3 weeks, is that the way to survive? Probably it's not, because you can't ignore change. You can go along with it, or you can fight it. Fighting, in our case, is a waste of time, because it will just fight back. If you're put under pressure to lower your rates, and I believe that in the industry now, many companies, many large agencies are increasing, not increasing, they're increasing their prices, they're lowering your rates, and they pay far less. They say, well, it's COVID. We've got to pay less because of COVID. I think, well, why should COVID make you pay less? You're using it as an excuse. But I know there's pressure out there, especially in the last few months when a lot of us translators have had not as much work as we would like to have. The tendency, the temptation is to say, oh, I'll make it more expensive, I'll pay less. Other industries don't do that. They don't suddenly put the price up because they haven't got much work. You don't go to a travel agent. Perhaps you do. Interestingly, now that people are going back on holiday in the last few weeks, certainly in Western Europe, the borders have reopened within Europe, and people are now booking holidays, and the price of hotels, campsites, holiday villages has gone sky high because suddenly people want them. The last few months, when it was difficult to travel and people were unwilling to travel, the prices came down. So why, in translation, when there's not much work, do we put the prices up? And why do we pay our translators less? I say we, I should say they, because I'm not in that category. If you're put under pressure to lower your rates, there's a simple answer. And this is the simple answer. Of course we can do it cheaper. You get what you pay for, you pay money, and you take your choice. Thank you very much. I don't know how many of you are out there, I can't see any of you, but thank you for joining me today. There'll be time for questions in a moment. If you want to contact me with questions, if you're not able to do so live now, there's my contact details below, and I'll be happy after the broadcast to get in touch with you. If there's anything I said that you either were not clear about, disagree with, or even agree with, you can contact me. I wish I was there with you.
Thank you.
Hope to see you next year in 2021, and thank you for being here with me today.
Okay, Nigel, thank you.